Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode with me, Teacher Yuven. And today we're going to be talking about mothers, right? So, whether you're a working mom, whether you're a stay at home mom, this episode is especially for you. Now, before we start on today's episode, I want to have a sharing session. I want to share with you what I have heard sitting on this side of the screen from mothers, right? So, most of the mothers who come to us, here are some of the things that they have shared, right? They say that they're juggling work and family, and at the same time, they have to juggle their child's education, they have to juggle the child's health, they have to make sure the child becomes a success. Now, even though they are doing this much, they're doing a lot more than anybody else. They are constantly surrounded or engulfed by guilt. They always feel like they're not doing enough. They always feel like, oh, I was not there for that special moment. I was not there at every moment my child needed me. So this constant guilt engulfs them. So in today's episode, I guess what we're trying to do is we are trying to break away from the stereotype. We're trying to help mothers see that balancing it all doesn't mean perfecting it all, which means balance is not exactly perfection. It's easier said than done. So we're going to make sure that you leave today's episode with a lot of tools that you can implement and achieve this in your own life. Now, the other thing that I think I've heard a lot of mothers share with me is that they always tell me, teacher, I am tired of being the teacher at home. I just want to be the mother, which means what they're telling me is that I just want to play with my kid. I just want to ask them how their day is and then have dinner and then go to bed. Like what or when this happens is when schools are not doing a good job or the teachers are not teaching properly at school and the child is lagging. And then that burden falls on the mother. This is also a lot of mothers have shared with us, right? And then, of course, is the last part. I don't know, this one is because of the society around them or mothers themselves feel this, right? They always feel like, oh, you know what? My child is only going to be this young once. After this, they're not going to need me anymore. So I always share with mothers, right? But you are also only going to be this age once. You are also aging. You also need that time to enjoy your own life. Then it becomes a question of balance, right? So I guess in today's episode, what we're trying to do is how do we achieve this? How do we have it all? Now, in order for us to have it all, I think from listening to so many mothers, because I've been a teacher close to 15 years now, right? So what I know, one of the biggest domino effect, or I could say that one of the biggest blocker for mothers to be super productive or even content with their life is mom's guilt. So that is the first thing that we're going to explore today. We're going to explore why do you even have mom's guilt, what to do about it, how to handle it. And I feel like if a lot of mothers can get past the mom guilt, then they are able to see clearly on what needs to be done logically and rationally. But because of this guilt, it always pushes them to take an action that might not be the best in their child's need or even for their own mental health and well-being. So what we're going to do today is first we're going to cover and really unbuckle or unpack what is this mom's guilt. Then the next one we're going to do is we're going to look at emotional toolkit for busy mothers. Now, why is this emotional toolkit important? Because I feel like once you've unpacked the mom's guilt, it's very important for you to understand how do you manage yourself and your emotions. Because from what I've heard, at least, because I'm not a mother, but I'm a parent, so I hear both from personal stories as well as professionally what mothers share with me, right? There is a lot that women experience because of so many expectations on them, right? So how do you manage all these things? So when you get past these two stages and then doing the third thing becomes super easy, which is what are you supposed to do to ensure the academic success for your children despite you being busy. So that is the three parts that we're going to look at. That are the three parts that we're going to look at in today's episode. Now, without further ado, let's get started with the first one. So the first one is, why do you have mom's guilt, right? Okay, this is a super interesting concept. It took me a long time to research and present it in a way that will make sense to a lot of people. But let's start by the first one. The first reason why you have mom's guilt is driven by evolutionary biology. So it's just in the biology itself. So what do I mean by that? So if you want to understand evolutionary biology, let's just break it down to two. Yeah. So first are the attachment theory. The second one, kita kena look at the evolutionary advantage. Apa tu evolutionary advantage? So first, attachment theory. So the psychologist John Bowlby, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. So what he introduced is this attachment theory that there is a strong emotional and physical bond between the child and its primary caregiver. So in most situations, universally, the primary caregiver is usually the mother. In most situations, I would say 90+% situation, right? So the mother is the primary caregiver. Now, why does the child develop this attachment? Because this is where the evolutionary advantage comes into place. Because as much as the child is attached to its primary caregiver, in this case, the mother, it is then higher, the chances of it surviving becomes higher. So that means it's like a scientific experiment. That means the more you are attached to the primary caregiver, the higher the chances of you surviving as a baby. Now, what happens is then the attachment becomes really strong, and there are hormones released to make sure the bond between the mother and the child is really strong, really at its highest when the child is newly born. And I don't think that goes away after the child is a toddler, right? A lot of children remain attached to their mothers throughout their life. Now, when they stay this close to the mother, and that is our biology, that's our, by human nature, this is our biology, right? Now, what happens is with modern responsibilities, when women started to work, there is a distance. Even if you are working from home, you cannot be 24/7 available for your child, right? Especially those mothers who are going to office to work, there is a forced distance. Now, this forced distance is a problem because it creates conflict with your own biological urges. Your own biological urges is to be there 24/7, take care of your child, nurture them, be there for every slip that they have, every bruised knee that they're going to face. You want to be there all the time. This is your biological urge, right? But the modern requirement is that you leave and go to work. Okay, how do we solve this problem? So first step is actually recognizing that these forces are more powerful than you. It is more powerful than what you want in your mind. So in terms of biology is going to push you in one direction, right? It's a very powerful force. And you need to accept that sometimes it's not rational, because as a mother, if you are there 24/7 available for that child, when is that child going to learn independence? Correct? So sometimes it is not rational, but it is a very powerful urge. So it is hard for mothers, unless you recognize this, that this biological urge is there. If you're going to function without noticing or without acknowledging this biological urge is there, then it is going to make your life even more difficult. You're always going to feel like, oh, there's something wrong. But just recognizing the fact that this biological urge is there and the urge is to stay with my child will give you some sort of solace, some sort of at least room to wiggle around. Oh, okay, this is because of my biology. It's not because of anything else, right? So what do you do now? You already know that this is driven by biology. Does that mean that you just stop and stay at home? Does this mean that you should abandon everything and stay at home, or you should abandon your child and be a career woman, right? Is this the two options available to you? So of course not, right? So what you want to do is you want to have an open dialogue. And I think that's what today's episode is going to aim at, is to have that open dialogue based on your own values, your own family's values, and probably what is the shared value between you and your partner, and what is your family's current need, so we can decide based on that. Now, this is going to be super powerful to have this dialogue, because once you have that dialogue, right, it is all out there in the open. I noticed that mom's guilt is super strong. Mom guilt super strong when it is inside your head. When you are thinking all these things, your thoughts are ruminating, it is when it is strongest. But once you have this open dialogue, either with your children or your spouse, it becomes weaker. So now it is all out there, open for you to analyze and make a rational decision. So that's the first one, right? Why mothers have. So understanding this is super important, that it is driven by evolutionary biology. The next thing that most mothers, I think, fail to verbalize or fail to put it out there is that they are torn by the expectation placed on them, right? Okay, this is very, very amazing, yeah, because I'm a young parent as well. So when we go out, if there's something happening with my child, they don't look for me first. They always look for my wife. And I can see that there is so much expectation placed on women, and women fulfill all these expectations flawlessly, that at most places, it's as if the fathers are not needed or not even expected to take an action. So I'll share. So we were planning for my son's birthday. And when I texted the balloon supplier, the first reply was, yeah, mommy, which color do you want? So it means to most people, it is beyond their understanding or beyond their imagination that our father will actually message to figure out the decorations or the cakes and whatever not, right? So there is so much expectation placed on women, especially mothers. Now, we can break this expectation into two parts, okay, and why it creates the mom guilt. We need to understand this deeply if we are to break this guilty feeling away. Okay, two parts, yeah. The first part is role strain and role conflict, and the second part is cognitive dissonance. Okay, if any of these words seems very big, just hang in there. I'm going to break it down and explain it to you just like how I do it in a class. Okay, first one is role strain and role conflict, right? What does that mean? Okay, in the modern world, all of us are expected to do so many things, right? So in case, I mean, the case for me, especially, let's say I'm expected to be a father, to be a husband, to be a good boss, to be a good teacher, so many things. And that is because I, first of all, choose to be in these positions. But I think for women, they don't have that choice. The moment you are married and a mother, you are expected to suddenly be the best mother the world has seen, and the best wife the world has seen, and better yet, the best daughter-in-law the world has seen. Because I don't think such expectations are placed on men. I don't think anybody goes around expecting their son-in-law to be playing any role, you know. But all these roles are expected out of women. So there's a huge strain, right? So for mothers especially, it can be very detrimental because they are required to balance multiple roles that require a lot from them. So one is being the primary caregiver. Everything also harap mak kan. Buku mana, uniform mana, bila nak pergi tuition, bila nak pergi kelas tambahan, semua harap mak. Masak apa dekat rumah, beli groceries, groceries dah habis kena isi balik, Colgate dah habis kena isi balik. Semua on the mother. And then the same mother is expected to meet milestones at work, kena meet deadline, kena make sure submit research paper, semua on time. So it is extremely challenging. It's extremely challenging. And I think because we don't have a conversation on how challenging this is, mothers suffer in silence. Right? So what happens is, because of this role strain, women experience a lot of stress, right? They experience a lot of stress because sometimes there might be incompatibility. A very good example is when, let's say, your child is sick and you have a deadline at work. Conflict. This is real role conflict. So which one do you prioritize first? I mean, most mothers will say, I'll prioritize my child. But what if you are a corporate lady who is, that project is worth 50 mil and your child, touch wood, has COVID? Can you see the immense pressure someone can be in when they are there, right? So what happens is then the guilt becomes quadruple. It becomes like 100 times more because they feel like they are not adequately performing well at any one of these roles. Now, the next one, why this guilt becomes magnified, is called the concept of cognitive dissonance, right? Okay. So I don't know why is it because culturally we have expected so much out of women, or because women expect so much out of themselves? There is two conflicting beliefs that women have to hold in their head at all times. So first, they have this view of being the perfect mother, right? You're always available, you're always nurturing, always patient. Anak buat gila macam mana pun, oh, you are just patient, you're just you're like Mother Teresa. You never lose it. Perfect mom, right? You're always loving, always kind. And then on the other hand, women also expect to be the high-flying corporate woman. Okay, I'm ambitious, I'm going to achieve everything, I'm going to be at the top of my corporate ladder. Like, both I want to excel in. So when these two things are forced in your mind at the same time, it creates cognitive dissonance because these are two conflicting beliefs or two conflicting values. Kalau senang nak cakap lah, this is almost two different people living in the same mind. So it becomes very, very challenging. And most of the time, because women have this internalized standard of motherhood, what a mother is, right? Or who a mother is, like I said, super perfect. It becomes really difficult to meet not just the requirement of being a mother, but also the requirement of being successful at your career, because you need to be perfect here. And also you want to be good here. Just being good at one thing is really difficult, but you want to now be good at both. Okay, so having said this, how do you solve the problem? How do you get out of here? Because today kita tak nak just discuss, oh ini masalah dia, this is what we realize, apa semua kan. Kita also nak tahu, kita pun nak tahu apa solution dia. So bila kita tengok dekat solution ni kan, this is something very common lah. I talk to my friends who are mothers all the time, and also we advise mothers who are here, right, when they share with us about their challenges when they are enrolling their children. So one of the things that I always tell them is, okay, what is a good mother? If you feel like you are not a good mother, then what is a good mother? Can you define that for me? Is a good mother somebody who just cooks 3 meals a day and changes their children's clothes and does laundry? Is that a good mother? Or is a good mother someone who does all that plus guides them in homework? Is a good mother that plus somebody who listens to their child all the time without ever getting angry or being the perfect therapist all the time? Okay, you need a definition. You need a definition, meaning you need what is A, B, C, D, E, F, G tau. Maksudnya dekat tempat kerja, we always know, right, which one menepati target, which one kena target, which one is below target, which one is exceeding target, which is super good performance. So if you don't have this definition in your head of what being a mother is, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because you are going to constantly just feel like you're not good enough. Because you're going to constantly compare like, oh, mak dia tu boleh bangun pagi every day masak sarapan. I tak larat nak bangun. I'm such a bad mother. You're just going to have this continuous comparison game going on in your head, and you are not going to ever be happy. So I always suggest to my friends and also mothers here at Pass Excel that have that KPI. Just write it out. I know it seems, oh my God, apa ni? But you have to do it. That's the only way you're going to be like, okay, you know what? I did quite a lot today. As a mom, I've done my part. Yeah, so untuk tahu tu, you have to set those goals. And we're going to look at how to do that later on in this episode, right? Okay, so the next one is, I think, very important to accept that motherhood is not a soccer game. Okay, motherhood is not a soccer game. So what do I mean by that? Motherhood never ends. Like, being a parent, it never ends. It's not like a soccer game. It's kind of like, okay, start now, 90 minutes later, we're over, maybe buat penalty kick, dah habis. Football, over. Tak. You are going to continuously be the mother from the day you gave birth till the day that either one of you dies. Yeah. Let that sink in. It's forever. It's forever. And highly likely, if you cannot accept that, just look at your own mother. Highly likely, your own mother is still worrying about you and your well-being, even though you are an adult, you have become a mother and you have children of your own. Right? So this is a permanent thing. This is not a short-term game. I think there's this book that can really help you change your mind regarding the perspective or the long-term vision of being what it is like being a mother. And if you want to know the book, just comment down that book and we will make sure that we DM the book title to you. Yeah, so just not take more time here. So that's one of the reasons. So we've covered both evolutionary biology and we've seen torn by expectations. So the next thing that we're going to see is that we're going to look at societal and cultural norms. Like I said, right? when the child falls down, when we go out, either a wedding or a birthday, the moment the child falls down or they need somebody to look for, they always look for the mom. And I always feel like, I'm the dad, I'm just here. Like, by the time I go there, oh, then they're like, oh yeah, you're here also. It's almost like they cannot see you, right? So there's deeply ingrained expectation out of women that women will always be there, the mother will always be there, always be available. And I think one of the most damaging stereotype that we have for mothers is this ever-present mother, ever nurturing, and she is so very patient at every single step of the way, you know? So when women are expected to do that, and like I said just now, also be the ambitious career-driven women, then they feel like a failure, because it feels like you are not able to meet the idealized version or the idealized standard for even one role. And then you feel like a complete failure, which is why I keep telling people, have your own standards, have your own KPI of what meeting standard means. Kan? I mean, we will never go to work that, oh, hujung tahun lah kita tengok macam mana, whether you meet target ke tak, target pun tak tahu apa, lepas tu kerja je setahun. Boleh ke macam tu? Tak boleh kan? Like, then how would you know you deserve bonus ke tak? So similar thing applies even to being a mom, right? Right. So here's another thing that I really, really want to say, right? Okay. I absolutely hate this term. I absolutely hate mothers knows best. Because honestly, mothers don't. Maybe God knows best. But how is a mother expected to know the best all the freaking time? A good comparison, yeah, to see why mothers don't know best. When my wife newly gave birth, she's suddenly expected to know how to change diapers, how to breastfeed, even though you don't have milk supply, even though you just gone through cesarean and you cannot even move. You are expected to suddenly be this patient, nurturing mother who's just so loving towards the child. And I'm like, wow, if I am at this position, if somebody just cut me open, I just want to rest. Like, I just want to sleep. Right? So, and I think at every single stage, the child goes through different development stages, you know, being the mother for the same child when the child is a teen, when the child was a toddler, when the child was a baby, when the child is married eventually, is completely different experiences because the person evolves, the child changes, the child has so many different needs, they have dislikes, they have new preferences. So the mother has to constantly also learn. All right. When we say that mothers know best, it is very damaging for mothers because they are suddenly expected to know the best, even though nobody told them what is the best, even though nobody told them what it means to do A, B, C, D, E. There was no definition given, tak ada scope kerja, tak ada job description, tak ada off time, tak ada holiday, tak ada annual leave, nothing. Like suddenly you're just expected to be perfect. That doesn't make sense. And then, I nak tanya lah, bila kita kata mothers knows best, right? Did any of you go to a school to get a degree to become a mother? Tak kan? Tiba-tiba jadi mak. And then tiba-tiba orang semua cakap, oh, mothers know best. No, mothers don't. Mothers need to learn as well. So this idea of a perfect mother is super damaging and it is very pervasive. In almost every media marketing campaign, literature, we always suggest that mothers know the answer. Mothers know which soap to choose, which detergent to choose. No, they don't. Okay, they are just normal human beings. So the more we just accept that we are normal human beings with flaws, we are not God, the better it is for our mental health. Right? So I hope that really did sink in because I see so many mothers struggling with this. The next thing is, right, comparative culture and social media. Okay, oh my God. Let's take a second here. I think social media likes to sell this idea that not just the mothers have it all, but they have it all at such ease, right? Dia ada anak 4 orang, company 2, you know, social media always on point. Tu pun tak apa, guys. Tapi still, tudung, makeup, baju, semua on point. And they like to make it seem like they did it all by themselves. And I think that is really damaging. I don't know why women do this to themselves or why women do this to other women, because I don't think there are guys who do this to other guys, right? It seems to be like women have this internal tendency to just show people that, I can do it, it's all good. Tak masuk akal lah, sebab orang yang buat ni dekat social media, dia ada orang gaji 2 orang, ada mak mentua, ada mak yang semua boleh tolong dia. Lepas tu dia datang on social media, dia pretend like, I kena buat laundry, anak I tak nak I tolong buat laundry. Tolonglah, please lah. You memang tak tahu mana mungkin mesin basuh dekat rumah you pun tak. Sebab you got so many people helping you. And that creates such a damaging impact on most women, because then most women start thinking like, is something wrong with me? Because I am, after all, just going to a job and have 2 kids and I cannot get it right. And this woman who has 4 kids, 2 companies, and everything is running perfectly. So that must mean that I am not efficient. That must mean I am not productive. So this comparative culture is super, super bad, right? And the other thing that I want to invite mothers to do, right? Cuba buat ni. Cuba pergi social media sendiri. Cuba pergi your own story highlights and look at those highlights yang you dah pin up tu. And then cuba tengok cermin muka sendiri. Is how your highlights are and what you see in the mirror the same thing? This is crucial to accept that we project only the highlight reel. We only showcase the best, right? So what happens is, even when we are comparing to our own highlight reel, our life might feel like not so good, not so great. Sebab highlight reel tu, asyik dekat cafe, dekat London, dekat Pangkor. Lepas tu kat rumah, kena buat laundry lagi, guys. Kena lagi sapu rumah. So, it doesn't jive, you see. Now, I think instead of us trying to put a flawless facade on how perfect being a mom is, or how you are so good at being a mother, I think a more mentally healthy thing to do would be to just follow influencers and celebrities who are more relatable, who just share what it is like being a mother, what it is like balancing business and the demands of motherhood. So I think this makes more sense, and it is far more better for your mental health to have something that is real to compare yourself against versus an idealized version. Of course, the best thing is just don't compare, right? Just don't have this comparative culture at all. Just see what you can do. And we're going to look into that in the next section of the podcast. Right. The next one that we want to look at, and this is super important, it is psychological factor. Okay, apa maksud psychological factor ni? So, okay, in my circle, a lot of the women that I know, they were high achievers dekat sekolah. Memang jenis, lepas dapat kertas periksa tu, you dapat berapa You 98, I 99. Ni macam tu, tahu. And then selalu kira, you dapat nombor 1, I dapat nombor 2. Jenis like that, super high achievers, straight A's, and they always did the right thing in life. Dia tak adalah lumba haram ke, pergi isap dadah ke, tak ada. Dia memang straight lane to success. Jadi doktor, engineer, accountant, macam tu kan. So, it is their own psychological trait and upbringing juga lah. They want to be the best. And I think the biggest roadblock or the biggest speed bump happens when they have a child, because the child doesn't come with a manual. It doesn't come with like, okay, press this button and then it all will be good. Just like macam bila kita belajar kat sekolah, there's a manual, right? Okay, you do this much of homework, you attend maybe this seminar, and then go to tuition with this teacher, you surely will get A. Okay, in your career, there's also a manual. Okay, make sure you follow what your job is about, maybe upgrade yourself with a certain skill set, jump jobs. There's a clear manual. But when it comes to parenting, every child is different. And you've got to learn the child and you've got to learn parenting at the same time. So when this mismatch happens, where they suddenly perceive like, why am I not as good as I was before? I used to ace every single thing. Why can't I ace this? That's when the guilt becomes magnified. Now, that's one. That's psychological factor part A. Here's psychological factor part B. Part B is women who grew up with extremely high parental expectation, or they experience conditional love. Okay, apa maksud conditional love or high parental expectation, right? Okay, this generally can happen from mothers as well, but most of the time what I've noticed talking to adults and also talking to my students is that this usually comes from the fathers. Meaning, okay, let me try to recap your memory lah. When you were a kid, bila ada saudara datang je, you kena perform. Nyanyilah dek, nyanyilah. Uncle ada kat sini kan. Oh, you know that song that you like to recite, why don't you sing that song? So you become the performer from the family, you know. And then you notice that every time you sing well or dance well or recite the poetry well, everyone validates you. Everyone validates of how good you are, and you can see that it makes your parents beam with joy. They're so happy that you're getting that recognition. So slowly, what happens is you understand that in order to receive validation, in order to receive recognition and appreciation, you need to perform. And then you make this equation in your head that for me to be loved, I need to be a good performer. I need to do well in order to be loved. And this usually gets magnified when you have a parent who, if you don't perform, meaning like suddenly you straight A student kan, tiba-tiba satu exam tu you fail, ataupun tiba-tiba satu exam tu you just B minus, ataupun tiba-tiba satu exam tu you dapat nombor 2. Dia terus macam, oh kenapa you macam tak boleh macam ni anak jiran ke, anak sepupu tu ke, dia boleh buat elok je, kenapa you tak boleh padahal I give you more than what their parents are giving you. So this is what we call conditional love, which means I love you as long as you fit into my definition of what a good child is. The moment you don't fit into my definition of what a good child is, I stop loving you. So this is exactly what conditional love and conditional love functions as, you know. So this means you are now motivated, or you are now geared to always getting things right all the time. So these deep-seated patterns of seeking approval and validation from the outside world can manifest super strongly in motherhood. Lebih-lebih lagi sekarang ada Instagram mummies, right? So anak selalu kena perfect, right? Because now the child also becomes a trophy. The child also becomes a showcase. So these are two parts of the psychological factor which really amplifies the mom guilt. Now, the next one, let's look at the next one. We have fear of judgment. Okay, fear of judgment ni betul lah guys, are very, very real, because I have sat on this side of the screen and seen mothers battle with themselves. Like, that means I am quiet. It's just the mother, macam ada dua person tau. Dia cakap belah ni, yeah, I agree with you. Then the other person comes out, and from the mother itself, the other person comes out and goes like, but I'm not sure, you know, what will my mother-in-law say? What would my mother say? What would my relatives say? The fear of judgment is so high. Now, is this fear of judgment wrong? Is this fear of judgment not real? Atau ala, I tak macam tu, maybe you say, right? No, guys. The fear of judgment is real because you need to understand how the human brain is programmed, right? The human brain is 50,000 years old, okay? It's not new. It's not your iPhone 15, right? So with a 50,000-year-old brain, if you did not fit into the tribe, if you did not fit into your team or your society, that means you're going to die. Because then the society is going to ostracize you. They're going to leave you out with no food, no water, nobody wants to talk to you, and you're dead. And that's how your brain functions. So fear of judgment is super real. And in psychology, they call it the spotlight effect, where you think that everybody else is thinking about you. But the truth is, everybody is thinking about themselves. So there's a really interesting article for the mothers who want to read this. It's by Tim Urban. You can check out Social Mammoth, where he talks about how slow our brain is to adapt to today's modern day expectations. And sebab tu, because of that, we end up making really wrong decisions because we think that everybody's going to judge us based on, oh, whether we want to go for C-sec ke vaginal birth, whether we want to breastfeed or bottle feed, or whether we want to put our children in online school or we want to put them in a physical school. Because we fear others' judgment, the mothers can't do what is best for them and what is best for their children. And when they don't make that right move, their guilt again get magnified because they're like, oh, why am I doing this? Even though they tahu I'm not doing the right thing for my child, but they are forced to do it because of fear of judgment. And when they do that, their guilt again gets magnified, right? Okay, now next one, I think this is very real, and I hope most mothers who are listening to this, really pay attention to the next point. The next point is about self-identity and self-worth, yeah? Okay, a lot of mothers by choice, choose to define them as mothers. If I ask you, who are you? Oh, I'm the mother of sekian. And that's not surprising because maybe it's in women's nature to put the role of mother the highest, right? But it is of a huge detriment to your own self-identity, because now your identity is tied to saya emak sekian. Tapi siapa you? Kalau budak ni tak ada dah. I mean, because budak ni hari ni anak you, esok akan jadi suami orang lain atau akan jadi isteri orang lain. So what happens to you then? Right? Now, I remember the very first time that me and my wife, we sent our son to daycare. Then we usually go together to pick up, right? So when we go to pick up, I was parking, so my wife was walking in front of me. I parked and then I was walking behind, so a bit of a distance. So they didn't see me, they saw my wife first. So when they saw my wife first, I came here, the receptionist at the daycare center, terus go like, oh, teacher, Raghav's mommy is here. And that was surprising because throughout our interaction with the daycare center, my wife was always known as Raghav's mommy. Never once did they address that person. Never once did they address my wife with her name, And I completely understand. Of course, teachers who are listening to this, I'm a teacher myself. I understand why, because it's just easier, okay? So if I have to remember 2 names for every one child compared to I just remember the child's name and add Raghav's mommy, it becomes a lot easier. I understand. But it has serious repercussions on the person on the receiving end, because society makes you identify yourself as only a mother. Suddenly that identity becomes all-encompassing, as if all the other identity is not important, because my wife is also my wife. She is also somebody else's daughter. She is also herself, right? All this identity is equally important, I believe, to her, because one day the identity that you assumed in relation to others is going to end, right? Your children will leave the nest. So what happens to your identity then when all your identity is just invested in being somebody's mother? So I think for this is why I say this is super important, because I think it is very important for mothers to take at least some time each day to do what you like, to continuously nurture that self-identity that you are another individual, or you do have a separate identity besides being a mother. Now, I find that this is a lot more difficult for women than men. Okay, I give you a simple example. If I am sick, I am out, guys. If I have fever, I am bedridden, okay? There's once I had really high fever, and I was asking my wife, oh my God, we have not written our will yet. I know, my wife keeps telling me I'm very dramatic. So I'm like, we have not written our will yet. What's going to happen? She's like, you're just having fever. Calm down. And then compare against my wife having labor pain. She's like, you labor pain sampai tengah pegang dinding ni tak boleh gerak. She's like, do you want to go have lunch first? You've been here for a very long time. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And on a normal day, if she's sick, she still wants to let me just order groceries online because it doesn't take time. I just, I can do it on my phone. I'm like, why do you do this? Maybe you should take cue from men, just rest. Just, like how, kalau ada apa-apa pun, the fathers still watch bola. EPL still penting. So I noticed that men don't have this problem. Now, I think what you need to do in order for you to be able to do this for yourself is to have, again, that open dialogue with your partner. If your partner is not like me, not looking at you weird when you are working, when you're sick, or when you are overextending yourself, because honestly, to me, it's really weird, because I will not do this. Why are you doing this? right? So if your partner doesn't think of this naturally, it doesn't matter. It's not a problem because some people need a lot more awareness. So you can have that conversation. You know what? I think every Saturday night, I want you to babysit so that I can have some time for myself. Kita alternate lah, right? So that conversation is very important so that you can take care of yourself. Now, remember benda ni rasa mungkin macam kelakar tau. Alah, dia ni suruh kita rest lah, suruh kita pergi buat nails lah, buat rambut lah, whatever. But you need that time. You need that break because the rest and rejuvenation is part of the program. It's part of growth. You cannot just constantly work yourself to the ground. And you are expected to be in the position of a caregiver. You are supposed to care for others. And in order for you to care for others, you first have to care for yourself. Right? I hope I made sense. And I've really unpacked every angle of mom guilt that can be there. And I hope you take a moment to reflect this. And I will see you again after a very, very short break.
Now I am definitely more confident when I'm speaking, and I definitely like taking on new challenges. And the teachers treat me really well here. They understand me, and like I said, I can form strong bonds with them, which makes classes much more fun. Now I understand much more in the real world, in the economic world, in the business world, where sometimes people speak about things, and before I would agree with them, but now it's much more easier for me to debate with them and disagree on many things. I will forever be grateful because now they have made me more confident to speak up. I am not shy anymore. Before I didn't really like to mix around with a lot of people, but now I definitely do. And I would also like to thank them for helping me, be eager to learn many new things.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's episode. So in the first section, we've already unpacked mom's guilt. And now what we're going to look at is what do we do once we unpacked it, which means in section 2, what we're going to do is we're going to have the emotional toolkit for busy moms. And in today's episode, we're going to cover 9 such tools that is going to be super useful for you to handle the emotions in order to become a better and stronger mother, hopefully. Now, the first thing that you got to do is we will start with recognizing and accepting your feelings. All right. For most moms, what I've noticed is they do not have that pause button. They don't have that button to just sit down and accept, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling guilty, or I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling frustrated. They don't have this time because they are constantly on the go. They wake up, they get the child ready, they need to get ready, they need to make sure they are on point, the child is on point, books are packed, breakfast are packed, get them in the car, rush towards the school, rush towards work, come back, repeat the same cycle, get groceries, make dinner, check homework, put the kids to bed. It's non-stop work, right? So that pause button is important. Having that pause button allows you to have at least some time to acknowledge your feelings. What are you feeling right now? So recognizing and accepting that you feel guilty is the first step towards dealing with the guilt. Now, the next step is understanding that the guilt that you feel is very, very, very common. It is a normal experience for many parents, especially for parents who are trying to do well, parents who are trying to parent well. And that having that guilt doesn't mean you are doing a bad job as a mother. It does not mean you are inadequate as a mother, right? Just by having that feeling. So that's the first step that you need to do. Just hit the pause button so that at least you have some time to process your feeling. Tool number 2, you want to challenge and reframe negative thoughts. Okay, macam mana kita nak buat benda ni? Okay, dia ada 2 bahagian how we can challenge and reframe negative thoughts. The first section, what we want to do is we want to question the guilt. Now, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, why are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling guilty because of your own expectations, or is this expectation external? Is from somebody else? Is it from society, your partner, your family? Is it from somebody else? And most importantly, you want to question whether this expectation is realistic. Or is this just an idealized version of how things should be? I give you an example. A lot of mothers think it is normal that you wake up at 5 and before you reach work at 8:30, you are just non-stop running. That means you have already worked 3.5 hours. Then you park 8:30 maybe, and from 9 till 6, you are again working. And then you repeat this again once you reach home from 7:30 or 8 till 12. And then you have about 5 hours to sleep, and you repeat the cycle every single day. And you accept this as normal. Now, we already know most people need at least 7 hours to sleep. So you are now thinking it is normal for you to be sleep deprived and constantly working. If you put me under such schedule, most probably I'll quit. Not just me. Cuba letak anybody, and let's take this as a job. You kena kerja mula pukul 5 pagi sampai 12 malam. I think tak ada orang nak buat kerja ni. Right? So I think you want to question this. Is this realistic? What you are expecting out of yourself, is it realistic? That's the first part. Now, once you have hopefully come to the understanding that what you're expecting out of yourself is not realistic, you want to reframe those thoughts. So that means you want to shift your perspective from thinking that I'm not enough, I'm missing out on important time. When I'm in the office, maybe my in-laws are taking care, or maybe the maid is taking care of my child. I'm missing out on the quality time that I could spend with my kids. I'm always working. All these thoughts kan dalam kepala you. You want to reframe that. Okay, how do you want to reframe that? You reframe on the positive aspect of the situation. If you don't go to work, what happens to your children's education? Obviously, one person's income is not enough, right? So you are now contributing towards their future. By you going to work, what other benefits does it bring? Does your children get exposed to the world, different cultures, because you bring them to travel because you're working? So focus on the things that are actually the benefit of you going to work, instead of focusing on the negative. Now, why this is important to focus and to continuously just think about the positive? Bukan kita nak ignore the negative, but kita nak consciously, maksudnya kita nak allocate time to think about the positive. Sebab otak kita ni, minda kita ni, dia lebih mudah untuk remember atau untuk ingat dan store dalam minda kita berbanding perkara yang baik. So maksudnya, if perkara buruk tu dia boleh remember dalam 1 second, dalam 1 saat, perkara baik kena happen for 12 seconds in order for your mind to remember. That means your brain, or all our brain, remembers negative things 12 times better than positive things. Mothers, this is just how our brains are programmed, which is why for us to allocate time to consciously think about our contribution and the positive things that we are bringing for our children and our family is so important, because our brain is programmed to think only about the negative. Yelah, because it has to think about the negative. That's how it ensured the survival of our species untuk sekian lama kan. But now, if you want to have good mental health, you have to allocate some time to think about the positives and reframe your thoughts in positive thoughts. Now, once you're done with that, early on, you questioned your guilt, right? Tool number 3. What you want to do is you want to set realistic expectations. Now, how can we set realistic expectation? In the beginning of today's episode, I've talked about setting your own KPIs, right? So we are going to explore that further. We're going to define your success. Okay, are you considered a failure if you don't do breakfast every day? How do you know if that is a failure or success? Simple. Ask your kids. If you don't do breakfast, for them, are you a failure as a mother? I know this is a very difficult question for many Asian mothers to ask them, because you feel like, oh my God, I have not been raised that way. I don't think I can ask my kids that. But ask, because in business, that's the first thing I teach my students, right? You want to know what the customer wants. I'm not saying your kids are your customers, but they are the beneficiaries, right, of your efforts. So ask them, what is it that really matters to you? Does it matter that I make you breakfast every single day? Does it matter to you that I come back home and make dinner every single day? Does it matter to you that I do A, B, C, D, E, F, G? What really, truly matters to you? And then you have a good idea of what is in their mind a good mother is. So then you can define your own success. right? You don't have to burn yourself on both ends for things that maybe some other people don't even value, right? Now, once you have defined it by criteria, okay, these are the activities or these are the tasks that everybody appreciate and everybody wants me to do, then you ask yourself, but do you want to do all of them? Do you have room to do all of them? Is it realistic for you to do all of them? Which are the things you can delegate? Which are the things you can ask help for? Right? And most importantly, katalah diorang bagi tahu you kan, ada 10 benda ni yang dia cakap, oh yeah, I love it, mommy, when you do it, all of these things. 10 tu consider markah penuh lah kan. Tapi, like how I tell my students, you tak payah dapat markah penuh untuk dapat A. 80 lebih pun dah markah A. Right? So maybe what we want to do is we want to aim for good enough. Maybe we want to aim for A first now. Maybe we aim for A star later on when, you know, we feel much better about ourselves, or maybe situation at work has changed. You know, it's vice versa. You can always change situation at home or situation at work. That's your choice. But doing that from a place of power and a place of consciousness where you know what you're doing, instead of being pushed around by society, by work, by your children, you want to take your time to make this decision in a conscious manner. So you want to accept good enough parenting. Maybe this month or this quarter, you are B minus, mom. It's still okay, right? B minus is still good, right? So your children, you need to understand, they require love, support, and stability. They don't require perfection from you. And you will be more than surprised to know that children are very understanding. If you can explain it to them, this is how I feel overwhelmed, I feel like I cannot do everything. Explain it to them. They will be more than understanding to listen. At least you have to start, right? You cannot always just think your kids are very young and they don't understand. Now, kalau benda ni susah lah nak faham kan, you rasa macam, oh my God, if I let go of something, you know, my family is going to crumble, my children are going to become drug addicts, I don't know. You catastrophize. You rasa macam the world's going to end. I just want to ask you, dekat tempat kerja you, semua orang A-star ke? When you draw the bell curve kan, when the HR draws the bell curve, does every single employee fall at the extreme end of outstanding performance? Tak kan? Most people fall dekat mana? Tengah-tengah curve lah. They fall in C, right? But with most employees falling in C, company tu hidup lagi kan? Maju lagi kan? Is still making profit. Still boleh bayar bonus. So, I think we have to accept that being good enough is truly good enough for our kids to be successful. We don't have to overdo, burn ourselves on a stake for our kids to be successful. Best yet, I think some parents burn themselves so much that eventually they become resentful of their children for their own mistakes. Maksudnya, they keep thinking the kids robbed them of their life. The kids didn't give them the opportunity to live a good life because they were constantly sacrificing. One day, the kid is going to turn back and look at you and ask, but I didn't ask for all the sacrifices. So I think that's why you should have that conversation. What really truly matters to them, right? And then decide on what is good enough. That is toolkit number 3. Now let's look at tool number 4. And I think most women struggle with this a lot, and we have to talk about it, right? Seeking and accepting help. Let me state this out loud so that you accept this, or so that you hear it from someone at least. You are not a failure for accepting help as a mother, right? Just like your kids are not a failure for accepting help from you, just like your spouse is not a failure because they are accepting help from you, in the same manner, you are not a failure if you accept help from them. Nobody asked you to be a self-sacrificing person. You just have to be a mother. Okay, and how do we do this effectively? Step 1 is to build a support network. Now, you either connect with friends, right? Some mothers I know do this. They connect with people in their residential area, dekat taman sama-sama kan. Maybe hari ni mak tu pergi jemput anak, the next day the other mother goes. So maybe like that, maybe family, brothers, sisters, people who can help you, parent groups, who understand your situation, and of course values kena match lah kan. Kita tak nak have people who are not aligned with us, right? That's true. You want to choose people who are aligned with you. And next one, where I think where most of the struggle happens, is to delegate and share responsibility. So you want to share both parenting duties and household duties with your partner. I understand in most Asian households, it's very difficult to do this because it was not done in the previous generation. Men were never taught that they're supposed to share household responsibilities. So, biasalah, benda macam ni, kalau orang tak tahu, kita ajar. Have that open dialogue. How do you share your duties out? Maybe you want to start like this, just like at work. List down everything that you're doing. Maybe list down everything your partner is doing and then see, does this make sense? Is there a way that we can make this more balanced? Now, before we move on to the next tool here, I think it's very important again for me to stress that there is no harm, there is no shame in accepting help. Because I know many mothers, especially those who come to us and in my friend circle, where they can afford to get a help, they can afford to get a maid. But the reason why they don't want to get help or a maid is because they feel like, oh my God, that means I'm a failure as a mother. Like my mom did not have a help, my mom did not have a maid, she was able to pull this through on her own, so why should I? Right? Okay. I think it's very important first to recognize that you and your mother are two different individuals, right? What was her strength might not be yours. What is your weakness might not have been hers. So we can only judge based on what is your need and ability at the moment. The second thing that most women, I think, forget when they make this statement is, orang dulu tak pergi kerja, nombor satu. Kalau pergi kerja pun tak ada masalah. Sebab adik rumah sebelah, mak rumah belakang, abang taman sebelah. There was a very strong network. And most of us now live in condos where we are very much estranged from the rest of the society. We are on our own. Nuclear families are very difficult to raise children. So accept help in any form they may come, even help that you have to pay for. All right. Okay, having said that, let's move on to tool number 5, which is practicing self-compassion and self-care. Okay, this is a hard one, right? Because maybe this is because of Asian parenting. I noticed that a lot of mothers are not very kind to themselves. So when they speak to their children, they're like, oh, it's okay, you forgot about Mother's Day. I know you had a very big exam. It's okay, I understand. Or it's okay, you forgot to call me because I know you have a busy day at work. But if they forget to call on somebody's birthday, in their mind, it's like, oh my God, how can I do this? I'm such a bad mother. I can't even remember my own child's birthday. I'm so useless. I don't deserve this. And the thought continues, right? Negative self-talk continues. So I think the first step that a lot of mothers can take to be kind to themselves is talk to yourself exactly like how you would talk to your child, especially your child who's a toddler, right? If the child pours water, you won't say stuff like, mana mata dekat lutut ke? Kenapa bodoh sangat? You won't say that. You would say, oh, it's okay, you made mistake, you made a boo-boo, let's go get the cloth. Maybe you want to wipe, let mommy show you how you can wipe it, right? So practice that same kindness to yourself. You deserve it. You deserve it because it's going to be a lot harder to be kind to others if you're not kind to yourself, right? And then you want to start by prioritizing self-care. This I repeat so often to my own employees. I repeat it to the mothers and I repeat it to my friends, right? Because once you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of others, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. You need to make sure your cup is either overflowing or full in order to take care of others. So in order to do this effectively, what you want to do is you just want to schedule time in your calendar to do regular self-care. Okay, self-care, I know Instagram says that you need to go and do your hair, do your nails, go out shopping, whatever it is. But I have this friend, right? Her self-care routine is just that once a week, she gets her husband to take care of the children, and she goes to the mall to drink coffee, and that's all she does. She just drinks coffee looking at people alone. She doesn't check her phone. She doesn't read a book. She just people watches. Just let her mind wander. Take some time to be herself. That's it. So self-care is, there's a variety of self-care that you can do. And please don't try to include your kids in it if it's possible. Because a lot of mothers feel like, oh, let me try to go hiking, or let me try to go to the waterfall. Okay, let's make it a picnic, right? Self-care means you have time to be yourself, right? It might involve your children. For some mothers, maybe you want to do that, that you might find that most healing. You might find that that is actually your me time, where you send your kids to classes and then you get 1 hour while they are done, while they're doing their classes. It might be like that for you, but you need time to reconnect with yourself and replenish what is lost, what you're giving, right? What you're giving has to be replenished. So that comes with self-compassion and self-care. And the next one we're going to look at is tool number 6, which is focusing on quality time. Okay, this one I have heard so much from my students, right? They always say things like, oh, for my parents, last time when I used to teach in international schools, this is what I've heard from my ex-students, right? They say things like, oh, my parents actually care more about work than us. They don't have time for us. Because then I ask them, how do you know that your parents are paying for these fees? Like, they obviously care so much about you in order to spend so much on your education. Okay. Then they're like, oh no, I can never talk to my parents because they're always so busy. They have meetings even during dinner. They're constantly checking on their phone. I'm like, so what happens when you talk to your parents? Or even when I talk to my parents, they're either replying on WhatsApp or they're checking email, or sometimes they're scrolling on their phone. This is something you don't want to do. If you have already limited time with your kids, what you want to do is you want to make those time count. You want to make the most out of your time with your children. Either you engage in activities that really foster connection or activities that foster enjoyment. You want to make sure that the time you spend together is meaningful. So that means if you ask your kid, how's your day like? You don't want to be doing this. Oh, betul ke? Ya ke? While just the kid is eventually going to know that they are not your priority at the moment. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have strong boundaries when it comes to work and family. So you do want to allocate some time where you are not doing anything else while talking to your kids. That they know they have your time at that given time at least, right? So you want to focus on quality time. After that, you want to do number 7. You want to do tool 7, which is communicate openly. Okay, what is this tool about? So women generally, they need to talk about their feelings. Not just women, everybody needs to talk about their feelings, but I think men are not taught to how to talk about their feelings, right? So men just pent up and just pretend that everything is okay. But women, I think, because of their nature and because of the upbringing, they are taught to talk about their feelings. So I encourage you to talk about the feeling, either guilt or frustration or stress or anxiety, whatever that you feel, with your partner or a friend or a therapist. Okay, here is my public service announcement. If you are going to speak to your partner and your partner is a male, and when you are discussing this problem or you want to share this problem, and all you want is for your partner to hear, all you want is your husband to hear without giving a solution, I suggest you start by saying this: I don't want a solution, I just want you to hear. Ni penting because kepala lelaki or otak lelaki, dia punya programming lain. Programming dia, oh, you tell me this problem, okay, let me hear, okay, this is the solution, let's solve this, let's do this. It's very action oriented. What else? I think for most women, what they want, most wives, what they want is just to get it out there. Because they already know the solution, but they just want to vent. They just want to get it out of the system before they take their action. Now, if your husband doesn't get it until now, I suggest you share this piece of content with them so they get it, right? But make sure you have clear communication with your spouse. You make sure you make it clear to them that I'm not looking for a solution. And if you are, tell them that you're looking for a solution, because men's mind work differently, right? Now, the next one that you want to communicate openly is that you want to communicate openly to your children. You, depending on their age, you want to discuss with them and make sure they understand your choices and the values that you have and the importance that you're placing on your career and your family. You want them to understand this. So you don't want them to feel like you're abandoning them for work, or you don't want them to feel like, oh, mommy's always going to be available. The job is a side gig, right? You want them to truly understand what is what and why are you making these decisions. So that is very important. Like I said, children can understand really well if we give them the chance. So give them a chance, have the conversation. If you don't know how to have the conversation, learn on how to give the conversation. There's many resources available online on how to do the conversation well, right? Okay, now, tool 8, adjust your perspective. Now, you want to have this discussion, right? When you want to have this discussion, before you have the discussion even, you want to recognize the benefits. What are the positives that come out of your career, right? What is the financial stability, the personal fulfillment, the holidays, the clothes, the better food? What is it that your career is providing for the family? You want to be very clear about the benefits. And how does these benefits overall contribute to your family's well-being? So you want to recognize these benefits. You want to communicate it to your kids. And you want to, the second part of this is when I say adjust your perspective, what you want to do is you also want to model resilience and independence. Okay. When you go to work and also balance what is needed in a family, you are modeling the values that are important for you. You are telling your children by action that these are the things that I value. That I value independence, I value learning, I value resilience, and most importantly, I value the importance of pursuing personal goals, even when it's so difficult, even when it is tough. I am not the kind of woman who gives up, who just chooses either or. I choose to do my best in both to the best of my abilities. So when you do this, this is what the children learn. They learn that, oh, just because I have a family, it does not mean I have to give up on my career. There is a way to make both work. I just have to have an open dialogue with myself to know which one to focus on when, right? So that's what I mean by adjusting your perspective. Lastly, tool number 9, what you want to do is you want to set boundaries and you want to prioritize. So this one falls back to yang phone scrolling tadi tu lah. So you want to make sure there is a boundary between work and family, and that the time that you are present at home or the time that you're saying, okay, this is solid, this time is solid only for family, then make sure no matter how much of an emergency it is at work or whatever it is, you try not to get involved during that time with work. You just focus on family time, right? And you prioritize what's important. Remember, I told you, prioritizing is a very difficult skill. You want to have this skill because even if your kids say there are 10 important things, mommy, that I equally value, you've got to use Pareto principle. You've got to figure out what is it that they value the most and execute on that. Maybe those that are not important, we can get them, we can get those things later. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying. Now, those are the 9 toolkits to make sure you are mentally strong, resilient, and healthy, right? Now, once you have achieved that, or at least you have gotten started with that and made significant progress, and then you are more than ready to guide your child towards academic success. And that's what we're going to look at in the next section of the webinar, right after this very short break.
Want to find an online school, you just don't simply look at the grades. Now, what is the point of having good grades if they're just memorizing? They don't even know how to speak. They don't even know when they go out. And they go out, they don't know how to speak, to voice out their opinion. Because now, when you go for an interview, me as a business owner, when I go for an interview, when I interview my staff, okay, I put aside the grade, even though they are 4 flat, 4.0, whatever, okay, I ask them critical question. The new grads, whatever, critical question, okay, how do you solve this question? I gave them scenario, how do you solve? We want to induce critical thinking. Something not just out of the box. We have no box. You have to think without box at all. Now it is not there in the normal education system now.
All right, welcome back to the final section of today's webinar. And in this section, we're going to be talking about how to guide your child towards academic success. Okay, the first step is to cultivate a growth mindset. Okay, how is this different from what most parents do, right? So most parents will say, oh, I want you to get an A. I want you to get 90 marks. I want you to score in this particular range. This is what we want. So in his book, James Clear, called Atomic Habits, right? In this book, he mentioned something. There's nothing that differentiates an Olympian that gets a gold medal with the Olympian that loses, right? What is that non-differentiating factor? All of them came to the Olympics in order to win. Ada tak orang yang pergi Olympic, tak apalah, aku nak kalah sebenarnya. Aku tak nak dapat pinggan emas. Tak ada kan? Everybody had the same goal. That means every kid who is in a class, most of the time, wants to get an A. So setting that goal is not important, but cultivating that growth mindset is important. So in this regard, I would like to share a story, right? So this person called Carol Dweck, she wrote a book on mindset. In her research, they took inner city kids and they divided them into two groups. So these kids both received maths help, maths tuition, let's say, make it easy. One kid was told that, oh, they're really smart and they should be able to do it, and they were just given help with mathematics. They were just taught everything. The other group of kids were also taught mathematics, but they were told that their brain is like plastic. They can continuously learn. It's a process of getting better. It can continuously adapt and evolve. And the kids who were told that they can continuously adapt and get better perform so much significantly better than the kids who just received the maths help. Okay, so what did they do differently? Every time that they marked the paper for the group that were told that their brains can adapt and grow, they were just told, oh, you're not there yet. Just a simple difference. You're not there yet. Yet. When they added this word, suddenly the kids got like, okay, I'm going to get there. But maybe not today, but I am going to get there. Versus when we give our kids praises like, oh, you're so smart, you're such a genius, you're intelligent. What happens is they believe that to be 100% true, and they shy away from challenges, right? So what we want to do when we are dealing with our children, we want to praise them for their effort, their perseverance, and their strategy, rather than an innate intelligence or talent. We're not going to say like, oh, you memang pandai gila lah, you memang genius, you know, you really have a talent, you really have an eye for this. We're not going to say stuff like that. We're going to praise what is within their control, which is their effort, their perseverance, and their strategy. So this is an important message for all mothers, right? Studying is very much like going to the gym. That means if you continuously load up higher weights and you continuously take care of your diet and food and you rest properly, there is no way that you're not going to be growing. There's going to be no way that you don't hit whatever goal that you have for your gym journey, right? Similarly, if you teach your child to continuously persevere, keep on trying, keep on thinking on how they can improve, they are going to get there. But if we make the journey about just getting an A, and if they don't get an A, they're a failure, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. So the first tool that you have is cultivating a growth mindset. Number two, what you want to do is you want to communicate openly and curiously with educators. Okay, I added this word curiously because a lot of the parents, when they come and ask teachers what to do or educators what to do, they just want to know like, oh, if the teacher says A, B, C, D, E, they just accept it. I want you to start questioning what the teacher says. Why is it so? And most importantly, parents, please listen to me very carefully. If your teachers say things to you like, oh, dia okay, dia cuma kena study lebih sikit, dia cuma kena fokus lebih sikit, dia okay je, cuba kena ada extra effort lah. Please run the other way, right? What kind of feedback is that? How are you supposed to work with that? What is study more? Study apa lebih sikit? Which topic? what subsection under the topic, what skill set is missing under the topic, right? So when we do this at Pass Excel, we make sure that we pinpoint, we sit down with the kid and we figure out what is the reason. Is it time management? Is it this kid has exam anxiety? Is it the kid didn't understand the topic well, which should not have happened in the first place, right? So we try to drill down and understand and tell the parent the specific feedback that they can work on so that they can see a better result in the next monthly test itself, right? It's like saying, bila orang tak tahu pandai masak kan, orang tak pandai masak, orang suruh you makan, ada you bagi tahu dia, oh, okay lah, okay. Cuma you keep trying, you'll get better. No. You tell them tak cukup gula ke, tak cukup garam ke, tak cukup pedas ke, tak cukup minyak ke. You tell them, right, what it is missing. So the teachers are supposed to tell you what is the missing ingredient for your child's success. And it is not just more effort. All right. Now, the next tool that you have is you want to engage in active learning strategies. So you must understand that your human mind is able to transfer skill set from one area to another, right? So taking that into consideration, when you're going out with your children, you want to ask them questions that will engage their curiosity. You want to foster an environment dekat rumah where you are always asking encouraging questions or you're finding out answers together. It can be it can be things on like, why is the price of egg going up? What is the current prime minister's policies? Maybe you want to talk about why is a certain celebrity acting a certain way? What are they doing to get attention? How is this beneficial for their business? You want to ask them this question, encourage them to think, because this ability to actively question and actively think is now getting ready to get transferred to their academics as well. So this is what you can do. You can engage them in active learning strategies. Now, here is tool number 4. You want to encourage them in self-assessment, meaning you want to give them the gift of awareness. You nak dia realize apa kelebihan dan apa kekurangan dia. How do you do this? Simple, step paling simple. You give them practice questions, right, to do. After they have done the practice questions, you don't mark for them lah. You give them the marking scheme just on that practice question. You let them mark. Then you ask them, why did they get these things wrong? They got how many wrong? Why did they get this wrong? What is their thought process on why they got it wrong? So of course, kids in the beginning, they're not very good at assessing. So you got to help them. If they say like, oh no, I just didn't study enough. But then this doesn't make sense. You spent a lot of hours studying. So why did you get this question wrong? What is the skill set that is missing? What is the knowledge that you want to repeat and retain? How can you improve your retention? So kita nak tanya soalan macam ni where they can eventually understand, okay, this is the skill set that I need to repair first. Right? So you want to make them independent. You nak dia jadi self-reliant on themselves to solve the problem and not only on mommy's help. Okay? Now, having done that, you want to move to tool number 5. Okay, tool number 5 ni bagi saya sangat penting lah. You want to establish a routine and environment conducive to learning. So dia ada dua bahagian. First kita nak talk about routine, lepas tu kita nak talk about environment. So let's talk about routine. When it comes to routine, you want to set a consistent schedule for your children, because even if they're teenagers, even if they look like young adults, they still need supervision. They still need a consistent schedule and some sort of monitoring and supervision from you. So you want to develop this schedule together. Okay, what do you want to do now? What do you want to do next? Okay, pukul berapa dinner? Family time, maybe it's not negotiable. Dinner time is this. Semua orang kena makan. Right? And this setting up a consistent schedule ni is very important, because it also means what time do you get to use your devices? What time do you get to access the internet? When do you get to access the internet for studies, and when do you get to access the internet for social media? You want to have all this in the schedule. Then when we talk about study space, right? So study space, semua orang akan cakap, oh, give them a quiet, organized place to study. Memang tak boleh ada distractions. Yes, okay, all that is acceptable. But it is not limited to just that. It also means maybe sometimes you want to plug out the Wi-Fi router. Maybe you want to make sure you take away the phone during study time. Maybe they only get phone at certain hours in a day. Now, this is very important, yeah, because we've had experience of parents coming to us and saying that, cikgu, boleh tak bagi kerja rumah lebih sikit? Sebab saya tengok anak saya ni malam-malam main game. So, bagi pandangan saya lah, saya rasa macam, okay, you nak saya bagi kerja rumah sampai anak you tak boleh tidur malam ke? Atau you nak saya bagi kerja rumah sampai dia kena buat sampai tengah malam ke? Tak kan? The easiest way is for you to just unplug the router. I rasa kebanyakan parents sekarang, because they don't want to parent, they want to pass on the responsibility to the cikgu pula. So you can't do this. So part of establishing the routine and setting an environment is also being a responsible parent and setting very strong boundaries on all these things so that your kids can actually focus on studying. All right? Now, let's look at the next tool that you have in your perusal, which is fostering independence and responsibility. So how do we do this? We actually teach kids time management. We teach them, okay, let's look at this together. Ya, abang, how many hours do you have? You bangun pukul berapa? Pergi tidur pukul berapa? Pukul berapa you balik daripada sekolah? How many hours do you have? And you have like 7 days in a week. When do we slot what? Right? We teach them how to set goals. We teach them how to break tasks into manageable steps. And then we need continuous monitoring. Now, understandably, most parents can't do this. It is very challenging because you already have so many deadlines and milestones to meet at work, and then you have to manage household. And managing this as well might be challenging, especially when you have multiple children. So here at Pass Excel, we know that most parents can't do this, which is why here what we do is we do those things as seminars for students who are enrolled here. We have time management seminars, we have goal setting seminars, and then we have continuous monitoring whether the students are on that way to meet their goals. Are they managing their time properly? So all this is part of the program because we know it is very difficult for mothers to meet all these requirements, which is why I say sometimes some help, some support network has to be a paid one. And that's where Pass Excel comes in, right? The next tool that you have is to embrace failures as learning opportunities. And this is the last tool that I want to give to you. I think the first thing that we need to do tadi tu kan, the growth mindset. So once you dah ada the growth mindset, what you want to do is you want to normalize setbacks and you want to normalize failure. Because failure is an opportunity to learn. And the one thing that I always tell my students, right? You tahu tak, bila you were born, you didn't even know macam mana nak kentut. Babies don't know how to fart, right? Any mom knows that you have to usap the tummy, you have to put them at the back, either burp so that they can fart, because when they have gas, they cannot sleep. So I used to tell my students this, you didn't know how to fart, you didn't know how to go to the toilet, you didn't know how to walk. You used to fall down every 10 steps or every 3 steps. But look at you now, such a champion, walking like nobody's business. So just like that algebra that is so hard today is going to be super easy if you keep trying, because the baby didn't take 3 steps and then fall down and say, it's okay, maybe walking is not for me, the adults can do it. No, human beings are resilient. They keep trying. So I tell my students, you have to keep trying. So what we want to do is we want to normalize that setback. We want to tell children it's okay. Memang you learn through failure pun. Failure is not part of learning. Failure is learning. That's how most of us learn, right? It's a natural part of learning and growth. And so what matters is how they take that failure and what they learn and how do they progress from that. So we want to normalize failures and setbacks as much as possible, right? Now, the next part in embracing failure is we want to then work on problem solving, right? We want to look at how can we problem solve together, parent and child. So when they are faced with academic challenges, we want to immediately flip that. Okay, this is challenging. Let's accept that. So what's your solution? How are you going to overcome this? What's your strategies? I understand that this is frustrating. I understand this is distressing, disappointing to you. Let's take a moment to process that feeling. Okay, now what's the next step that we're going to do? What's your strategy? So we want to focus on these things so that eventually the kids can do this on them by themselves. They don't need mommy to be there to help and guide at every single stage. And the last thing that I want to mention here is allow them to be imperfect. They might not get everything right the first time, but they are learning, and that is okay. Because what we want is we want them to keep trying, keep improving, and keep learning. All right, so that was my final tool on how you can guide your child towards academic success. So together, this has been a very long episode. We've covered so many grounds. I want you to take some time after this episode to really unpack that mom's guilt, see where that guilt is coming from for you. And then I've given you all the steps that you need to take to address that guilt and all the other emotions that come in the emotional toolkit. Lastly, I've also given you the steps that you can take to guide your children towards academic success. Now, we've covered a lot, and I hope this has been a valuable session for you. And what I want to ask from you is that if you have any further question, if you wanted to share something, you wanted to see which part of this episode was valuable, please type in the comment section. And please type away with all your sharings and all your questions in the comment section, and we will definitely get back to them. And see you in the very next episode. Thank you, and bye-bye.